back to our slide deck. Okay, so that's the first part of it here. The second part, this video will cut off at 40 minutes. That's okay. I'm hoping the slide presentation will take 40 minutes, and then take a brief bio break. If you're like me, you're going to need it. Press the link again, the same link from before, and we'll come back for a Q&A discussion. So it's a nice natural break to have. And we'll all have a timer at the top of the screen, which will tell us when we're near that 40-minute mark. So sound good?
Yes, sounds good.
Excellent. All right, so here's an outline of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about what the SCA is. I'll give you a brief introduction to the SCA, how it was founded, when, where. I'm going to talk about the formation of EALDORMERE as a kingdom and a brief history. We'll talk about officers, who they are and what they do. We'll talk about the awards and recognition system and those folks who wear the pointy hats. Frequently used terms, conventions, traditions, and customs, resources, and then we'll have that Q&A and discussion. So, what is the SCA? Well, it's not a Ren Fair. And that's fine. Ren Fairs are great, but it's the Ren Fair is where you're watching. And in this case, you're participating. You are it's immersive living history. And there's a bit of a lively debate about whether or not it is a LARP, like a live action role play. And in my mind, I do think it is a bit like a live action role play, but without the vampires and the fairies and the werewolves. Which I also like.
A different thing.
Well, I like that kind of LARP too, yeah. But in this kind of LARP, it's more historically influenced.
It's historical LARPing rather than fantasy LARPing.
Yeah.
Yes. So
live action fantasy role play. LARP.
LARP.
So essentially, if it was done in the Middle Ages or Renaissance, the arts are, you'll find someone locally who is either interested in recreating it or they're already doing it. And I would go even further and say, hobbies and crafts from today, we can find some medieval precedent that you can still do. So if there's something you do in your hobby today, there's a medieval precedent for it. You still enjoy that hobby. And look, Reese, I put the toy dancer in there just for you. He's interested.
For reference for the other people, yes, I am going to be doing fire performances.
Oh, don't encourage him. I see eyebrows being burnt off.
I want to do it too. I want to do it too. It looks like fun.
I wasn't seeing eyebrows. I was seeing like chest hair burning off.
I don't have any chest hair, so we're fine.
Fire
That's
good.
Where my wax pot was.
Fire
good.
Well, yes, fire.
The tree's pretty. Fire good, right?
I'm going to be eating fire too.
All right. So, brief history of the SCA. If you read fantasy, historical, fiction, well, this is really relevant to you. So it began as part of a graduation celebration with Diana Paxton, who is Countess Diana the Listmaker in Berkeley, California on May 1st, 1996. Now, if you're familiar with the term 1966, sorry. It's been a very odd couple weeks. 1966. It's not that long ago, 1966. And if you've heard the phrase Anno Societatis, or in the year of our reckoning, it goes to May 1st, 1966. That's why in the SCA, our new year starts on May 1st, not January 1st, but May 1st.
A little confusing, but yeah.
It is, but it works. Really, I promise.
What year are we at now?
I don't know. 2020?
55, something like that?
Not 2021 yet. Okay, so that gathering was based on a 19th century recreation of medieval life called The Last Tournament, which was the start of a new era. In the 1960s, there was this new revitalization of medieval history. See, my cat's trying to come over and play. Now, it was a huge success and people wanted to do it again at a public park, but when they had to put in group name on the application, they put down the Society for Creative Anachronism. It was chosen as spur of a moment. They didn't think it through, and now that is what we are. And we have a brief chat. Year 53. Yes, we're about to be year 54.
No,
now,
we're year 55.
Yeah, we're year 54, about to be 55. May 1st will be 55.
Yes. That's right.
Now today, the SCA is a nonprofit educational organization based in California and has affiliate organizations all over the world: Europe, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, East Asia, we're pretty much, we're everywhere. When I was serving in the Navy, it was fantastic because no matter where my ship went, Indonesia, Malaysia, Guam, Hawaii, there was always a group that I could meet up with right in advance and say, hey, I'm in the SCA. Can I come and visit with you guys? And every single time I had people I could visit with. It was fantastic. So, membership. That's usually that question comes up. And the SCA website says that there are a lot of activities that we do for free. You can come to a weapons practice. Sometimes there's like a $5 cost or donation fee. You come to an event, spend 30 bucks. If you don't, spend anything else, and that's the event and the feast. But there are benefits to having the membership. In having a membership, you can become an officer. You can run an event. You can be one of the staff members at an event that's required to have a membership. And for some nobility, you're required to be a member, an official member. So if you want to be a territorial baron or baroness or compete for crown, you need to be a member.
You also get a discount at gate in most events.
Oh, yes, of course. You get a $5 membership discount.
Yep. And Penzik is like 15 or
much cheaper.
Yeah.
Much cheaper. And I'm sure that there are other benefits. I think, do you need a membership to be a warranted marshal? I wondered about that one.
Yes.
I would
That's
say
what
yeah.
I thought. That's what I thought. So, yeah. So there's definitely benefits to being a member of the SCA. I've been a member of the SCA for a while, for years, and
3 years. We know 3 years.
3 years. I've been around for 3 years. Times.
A lot.
3 decades.
Hey, be nice.
Okay, so yeah. All right, so what does the pre-17th century world look like? So in the SCA, participants may develop what's called a persona, and it represents who you are in our current Middle Ages, as you might have existed based on, it could be based on a historical location, not based on an actual person. You can't be Genghis Khan, you can't be King Henry VIII. But using that person as a sort of model, because they typify their cultures, right? That time and place within their culture. So don't be Genghis Khan, but you can be a Mongolian from that time frame. Don't be Henry VIII, but you can be English from that time frame and related to the Tudors or working for the Tudors or associated or an alliance. Now, for most SCA members, participants, it means choosing a time and a place, building a name from there, a name that would have existed in that time and place. So Skaya is a really good late 13th century Scottish name. Fantastic. That works for me because Scotland's still Scotland at that time and the English people haven't come yet. It's great. And then from there, you figure out what clothes you would have worn, right? So you kind of build your persona from some fragments. And I've been talking with Reese about putting together a class on persona development. So we may look at doing something with that as well to kind of delve a little deeper, but how you do that. Now, this doesn't mean you can only explore that one area of the SCA or of medieval time. So 13th century, late 13th century Scottish, I've done belly dancing. Did the Scottish ladies at that time belly dance? Probably not. I'm thinking no. They probably don't own doombecks either. And I have one of those. They probably didn't blacksmith. I do that. So there's a lot of things that you can do outside of your persona backstory, which is essentially what your persona development allows you to do. Essentially have that backstory. And if you've ever played a role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, that backstory piece, it just helps you to set a framework for how you talk to other people, how you dress, sort of gives you, I don't know, character development. The cat is finally here.
Yay, Alder.
No, essentially, you can start there, and then you can go anywhere. And as the SCA says, when. You don't have to stay in the one place. Lots of people travel in the SCA.
I just want to add one thing. And you are not also limited by the gender of
Nope.
like your current gender. If you want to explore a different gender as a persona, you can do that. We have people that are in the SCA who identify as a woman in their regular life, but also have a male persona. They have two personas, and that's totally fine, and it's actually a lot of fun.
We have folks who also have persona that are based on Asian cultures, but they themselves don't have an Asian background. Now, again, this has been a bit of a debate that's been fairly active, and the general consensus seems to be, as long as you are approaching persona development of a culture that's not your own, with respect to that culture, then it's generally welcome. Those two pieces. Now, the other piece here, there are some things that are not necessarily historically well regarded, like in the Middle Ages, people who were gay, identified as gay, were not necessarily very well regarded in the general population. In the SCA, we live in a modern world. In our modern world, we have a lot more rights and freedoms that sometimes I think it's easy for us to almost take for granted in some cases. I'm a woman who works outside of my home. I drive a car, and in some cultures we can't do that, right? So there are definitely some differences in the SCA and how we portray the medieval world than how they actually were portrayed. Although we're coming really close to Plague, a lot closer than I'd like to be in how I play the medieval world. There should be less Plague, I'm just saying. All right. The known world. So the known world, and you'll hear that phrase occasionally, in the known world, we have 20 kingdoms. Now, when I started in the SCA, there were fewer kingdoms, and every few years there'd be another kingdom. And it was just, as we went through, there'd be more and more kingdoms. So it became really difficult to keep track of how many kingdoms there are. But I can tell you, today, there are 20. There are over 500, or over 300? Is that what I have here? 700 local branches across 5 different continents. Each kingdom is led by a king and a queen who gather their people in courts and give awards and recognition and make proclamations, and it's all very nice. And often those gatherings are very much oriented around the personas, or particularly the cultures of those individuals who are king and queen. So when Lita was queen, there were a lot of Viking scrolls.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Oh no, I enjoyed it. It was very good. And what was interesting was that in a very short time frame, we had a Tudor reign, then there was a Viking reign, then it was all very quick change. And what a lot of people like to try to do is they try to dress for coronation in the theme of that couple's reign. So when you're going from Tudor to Viking, it can be
confusing.
Fun.
Then we have the events where they do the special dressing, like Disney or
May the 4th.
May the 4th. Yeah.
All right, so kingdoms are then broken down into smaller areas, such as shires and baronies. And we do have a couple of kingdoms that have principalities now. And each of those principalities and baronies, they have their own ceremonial heads. So for principality, we have a prince and a princess, and for barony, we can have a baron and baroness. Now, in addition to the ceremonial leadership, each branch has a set of officers who direct the activities of that group. And they're all interconnected. So here's the best map I could find of the known world. Now, you can see it on my face. I'm very pale right now. Moisturize me. Sorry.
Moisturize me. It puts the lotion.
All right, so here we are. Here's EALDORMERE right here. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Yay! Okay, so here's EALDORMERE here. And then here's Kingdom of the East. Here's the Principality of Termara. There's North Shield. Did you know it went up
The
right
giant
beside
North
us?
Shield. Mm-hmm.
Beside us, very nice people there.
So big.
There's Avakal. Yay! There's Antir, goes all the way up here. There's a Principality of Ortha. There's West right down here. This used to all be West. Artemisia, There's Anstura, Trimaris. The Middle Kingdom's right here. He looks really small. There's a lot of people there, though. There's
Used
Lokak.
to be a lot bigger.
Used to be bigger. Used to be all this.
All of it.
All of that used to be it. Yeah, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll make a PDF of this presentation and I'll send it. I'll post it to the Barony of Rising Waters Facebook group so you can all download it and closely examine this map. There's a lot of detail in this map.
Is there going to be a test?
This is going to be attached to it.
So she said, will there be a test?
Will there be a test? Oh, no, no, no. No, there won't be a test.
Dang it.
Woo!
I'm very disappointed at the lack of.
Although, now that you mention it.
Hey. No,
Right,
thank you.
Let's talk about EALDORMERE. So before EALDORMERE was a kingdom, we were a principality of the Middle Kingdom. That's why, you know, we were part of that group. Now, in 1998, David and Lena sat the thrones for the first time as king and queen of EALDORMERE. And you'll often hear people call it the lupine thrones, because the wolf is our charge, our animal for our kingdom. The first shire. See, I don't know how to spell EALDORMERE. My fingers were in the wrong place.
It's almost.
I'll
Just
fix this
connect
before I get
the
it
with
to
the
you.
end.
EALDORMERE
EALDORMERE.
was Efrowick, which is largely Toronto, the GTA area, and it was founded by Gillian Olafsdotter. The second shire was Norlanda, which doesn't actually exist anymore, but is now basically Skeldergate. The third holding was actually a household. I'm not even going to try to say the name. It was formed by two gentles who basically are now Starleaf Gate, which is another group now, and Ben Dunfirth, which is now a barony. These three groups came together and formed the first barony in what is now EALDORMERE, the Barony of Septentria, in 1978. So when it formed in 1998, 20 years later, we already had a barony. We already had several shires that led into that, forming the kingdom. So let's talk about those baronies. So Septentria was formed in 1978, like I mentioned. And the first founding baroness was Gillian Duriel. So look at that. It was an independent baroness who was leading a barony. That's so good. All right, so current baron and baroness are Sven and Kirstikin. Yay! And their arms bear, I realize I wrote that, bear the symbol of the bear. Now, in some of the stories that I have read online, the bear was supposed to symbolize Ursa Major, but the bear is also a very much a defending and protective symbol at the same time. So there's a couple of different meanings to having the bear as part of their arms. And my mouse keeps disappearing. Oh, here we go. So SKRAELING ALTHING was the second barony to form in 1981. Henry and Enid were their first baron and baroness, and the current baron and baroness are Evelyn and David. Now, their arms feature the hare, right? Feast of the Hare is one of their annual events, and originally it actually comes from a humorous tale that no one will tell me. The second seneschal, Lord Thomas.
I found that story somewhere.
You did? Share it with me. I want to know the story. Apparently it was funny, but now it's a little embarrassing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to know. I like to laugh.
I'll have to find it.
That's SKRAELING ALTHING. So you see we had Septentria forming in the GTA area. SKRAELING ALTHING was a canton of it initially, and then separated and became its own barony in 1981. I mean, given the distance, it had to have been easier to form their own barony, so that they had closer events. Now, as the middle child, the Barony of Rising Waters formed in 1988. The founding baron and baroness were Mikhail and Fiona, and we actually have named our archery and thrown weapons ranges after them, their devices. The current baroness is me. Gaia. Now, the arms bear the symbol of a golden chalice. And it was interesting because we were talking about this closer to investiture. Like, what does the chalice represent? And it's
Ooze.
well, the original story that I came across was that it represents, yes, wine, libation, which is made It flows quite freely in this area, in the barony.
Like
But
rivers.
it also represents hospitality, which is one of the main industries in Niagara as well. And hopefully we demonstrate that at our events, hospitality. Now, Barony of Ramshaven was founded in 1994, and their first Baron and Baroness were Cordigan and Diane. Current Baron and Baroness are Penn and Lucia. Yay! Their arms bear the symbol of the ram, and it, according to the stories, represent the fighting spirit of the barony and its ability to respect differing opinions. I always thought rams were stubborn. I'll have to talk to Penn and Lucia about this.
They
curious
are
about this
stubborn.
now.
They bash and then they respect.
Fair enough. Well, they are actually, that posture is called respectant
Yes.
when they're facing each other.
Where's Ramsey?
Well, there's also combatant. That's another. Anyways, I'm also thinking about doing an introduction to heraldry class.
You should do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we end with Barony of DUNFIRTH, founded in approximately the same year, not quite the same time, but about the same year. Tarkatai and Thyra were the first Baron and Baroness of DUNFIRTH, and now we have Josiah and Brand. Yay! Now, their arms bear the symbol of the golden boar. That is not a golden boar. That's a castle. But the boar is actually the badge for DUNFIRTH, and it's intended as a ferocity, loyalty, and protectiveness. But the portcullis and the castle is also protection, but nobility as well. So let's talk about officers. I mentioned officers help to administer local areas. So has anyone seen these badges that are on this slide?
Yes.
I have.
Yeah, Candace is shaking her head. Okay, so let's demystify this a little bit, all right? I've tried to put them in order that I have my list here for. So our seneschal is the administrative head for any branch, whether it's a local branch, a canton, a shire, a barony, or kingdom, there's going to be a seneschal, right? The exchequer is, so the seneschal, I'll go back to that, is the legal authority. They're the ones who sign contracts, agreements for that local branch. And seneschals at the most local level report up through the ranks to kingdom level. Exchequer, there are treasurers.
People with coins.
So they help us to manage our funds and make sure that we remain solvent. Help us to know when we're about not to be and when we should be fundraising. It's a very important role, vital role. And they have that checkerboard with gold coins, right? So that's how you remember that is the exchequer. Chronicler, that's the two feathers with the black and white. The chronicler is the individual who puts together the newsletter for each group. So baronies, each barony has a newsletter, sometimes quarterly, sometimes more frequently. And at kingdom level, it's monthly. It's fantastic. And then we have a great supplemental that he's been doing as well, which is actually pretty cool too.
Really?
Yeah. Chatelaine is not the spider. The spider is web minister, like the web, right? Internet. There isn't a badge for social media deputy at this time, but the web minister and social media deputy work together to manage the online presence of those groups. Chatelaine, which is the green circle with the gold key, is representative of a time when historical chatelaines would wear their keys on their belts. And they're the welcomers, right? So they help our new members learn about the SCA, get connected with people who are also interested in the same activities that they're interested in, right? Heralds, that's the crossed gold trumpets on the green background. So they're the folks who will help with ceremony. They're the ones who cry the hall when you're at an event and someone says, hey, court's gonna happen in about 5 minutes. That's usually a herald. But they're also the people who help you figure out how to have a medieval name and what these badges mean and what they look like and what your badge could look like too.
Submitting it and
really good at that part.
And they're a little
All the
fanatical
things.
about making sure everyone has a name and everyone has a device. I can't
Oh,
explain it.
really?
I can't explain it. All right, so then we have marshals, and I've given 3 different badges of 3 different kinds of marshals. Our marshals, there's 2 ways to look at this. I've already mentioned authorized marshals, but marshal as an officer is the individual who's responsible for coordinating marshal activities. Now, in smaller groups, there might just be one who coordinate the authorized marshals for each of the different combat arts, combat activities. So this first one with the yellow arrows, obviously that's archery. Crossed axes, that's going to be thrown weapons. And then we have swords here.
Right.
And
Specifically, rapier swords.
they are. I couldn't find a good one for armored combat. It's
A shield with crossed
It's
swords.
not, oddly
basically.
enough, it's not a shield.
No.
No. So there's 2 different ways of looking at marshals. So one is the officer coordinating the activities. The other is a person who is trained in ensuring the safety of people who are participating in that combat event or activity, and helping to authorize individuals to ensure that everyone's safe, that everyone's learning how to be safe while they're engaging in those activities. The blue circle with the candle, that's the Minister of Arts and Science. So they're responsible for coordinating classes and activities and all kinds of fun stuff. I couldn't find a badge for Signet, but that's a person dedicated specifically.
What?
I know.
Oh, I will set you up with that.
Thank you. I'll add it to my
No
slide.
problem.
They're responsible for specifically calligraphy and illumination, scroll creation, teaching and coordinating those activities. And when it's an officer role, they're also generally responsible for fulfilling the scroll orders of whoever the authority is, whether it's a baron or baroness or a king and a queen, their majesties or their highnesses. Let that signet know we need 3 scrolls. Go and find us artists for these 3 scrolls. Confidentiality is at the highest order for a signet because nobody wants to have an award spoiled in advance. It's nice to be surprised with recognition, not just for the person receiving it, but for their friends too. It's kind of nice to have that happen. All right. And then here are some other ones as well. So we have an accessibility minister. Not every group has one, but they're out there. So someone who just makes sure that event sites are accessible. It could be the person who makes sure that there's a sign herald, a silent herald available at events if someone is attending who's hard of hearing, that sort of thing. In Rising Waters, we have a community liaison who works with our local merchants and tries to get them all connected to support our group or come to our events and merchant. You know, get all connected with us. Most groups have a calendar secretary. It's a person who makes sure our calendar is up to date when we let her know that there's an event change. A historian. A lot of groups have historians, and they are essentially the archivists for their groups, tracking all the historical records. Quartermasters track all their storage and supplies. Minister of Children. So in the last couple of years, we've had new rules in place for leading or coordinating child activities, child and youth activities. So now you need to have police record checks and vulnerable sector scans and be registered with the kingdom to coordinate events directly with children and youth. So this role has additional legal responsibilities. Land agent
Right.
deputy.
Can I break in for a second? Do
Yeah.
we still have the two deep rule as well?
We do still have the 2 deep rule.
Okay.
Now, the 2 individuals do not have to both be coordinating the activity. They just have to be in the vicinity. So you could have a 3rd person who's leading the activity who is not on the list of having the police record check. But as long as 2 people are there, that event is fine. That activity is fine. But you need to make sure you've got those 2 individuals who have been registered with the kingdom as have the police record check and the vulnerable sector scan.
Just to let you know, we're on the 3.5 minute mark.
I see that. Okay. Zipping right along. So land agent deputy, it's usually the person who coordinates large group encampments at events like War of the Trillium and Penzic War. So Rising Waters has one. A lot of households will have a land agent as well. And then finally, a democrat. It's usually a deputy to a chatelaine. and they coordinate demos. Let's talk about the 3 main activities. We're going to break and then come back to finish the slide deck before we get to discussion. All right, so combat activities, talked about this a little bit. Heavy armored combat, heavy rapier, cut and thrust. There are 2 different authorizations for that. We've got thrown weapons, archery, and siege warfare. So I didn't include in there combat archery, although combat archery is an additional combat activity that you can engage in, but you need to be authorized in heavy armored combat in order to engage in combat archery, which is fantastic and fun and lovely. Now, all of these, I believe with the exception of siege warfare, also include youth elements, like youth levels. So I've included a youth. So this is our only authorized youth fighter in Rising Waters, years before she was authorized. This is not a good sword. It was good at the time.
It's cute.
Lots of fun. Look at all these arrows. Look at all these pikes.
I know.
That's so cool. That's a ballista right here.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Want to get that started again.
Right? All right. So over here, we got 2 minutes. Arts and science. I've tried to put on here as many diverse arts and sciences, but there's no way I can capture them all. There's just no possibility. And it can be such a multitude. And I included combat arms, but they fall into this category too. When you're looking at the research of the historical role of combat arms, or the writing of it, or the literature related to it,
or making the armor.
Yeah,
making
smithing.
the armor, like it's just so extensive, right? Blacksmithing. Look, this is a little piggy right here. It was a
I
subtlety
remember those pig
for
heads.
my investiture. Look, there's a blacksmith, and this gown, I will never make anything like that. I have so much respect for costumers. But it's either done on your own or it's done in a group. Here's a bardic group participating here. Some amazing professional level crafts and awesome experiments happening all over the place. I love it. Okay, we got less than a minute. We got less than a minute. So I'm going to stop the share. Okay, we got less than a minute. We're going to get cut off. You're going to click the link.
Oh no, and now Peter just got here.
We're going to have to click the link, and then we're going to come back. Okay, and we're going to pick it up at awards and recognition.
Do we want to come back in about 10 minutes to give people time?
Let's do a bio break. We'll come back in about 10 minutes. Okay? I'll wait until folks come back.
So 10 to 9, everybody.
You can recharge your beverage. Mine might change colors in the meantime.
All right. See y'all in 10.
See you guys in a few minutes. Bye.
Adios.
So, awards and recognition. This seems to be one point that a lot of new folks this is totally new to anyone who's new. It's the same as joining Scouts and not knowing how the badges work. Kind of similar, a little similar. So what I've done here is there are different kinds of awards. So we have local awards. So in the Rising Waters, we have awards that we tend to give our baronial members. And I'm currently developing an award for allies, people who are the helpers of Rising Waters. So they don't necessarily live here or call Rising Waters their home, but they help us at events, they help us at times of need, and I think they should be recognized. So they're local level events, awards, and then there's kingdom level awards, which we're gonna go through here. There's also society level recognition, and that's where peerage comes from. And additional recognition beyond all of this, we've got Heralds Extraordinary. King and the Queen cannot give that recognition. It has to come from a principal herald, usually in court. So there's kind of a negotiation that goes on for time in court to recognize a herald who's done like above and beyond, almost peer-like level of service to their College of Arms. The William Black Fox Award is a society award for recognition for chroniclers who do amazing things. There's even a category of the award now for digital chronicles, digital newsletters. There's favors, King's favor, Queen's favor, Baron's favor, Baroness's favor.
Princes and princesses favor in some places.
They're just the nice recognition. We're doing a cool thing. There's the award of the Wolf Cub. It's specific to kingdom level of the SCA. but it doesn't bear any impact on an order of precedence, on ranking, but it is great recognition for our youth. There's also the Order of the Rose and Trillium. I'll tell you about those in a couple minutes, and Scroll of Honor. And Scroll of Honor can be done for kingdom level for an individual or for a group of people who did something amazing together. So the coordinating team for the Fan Expo demo last year, or Niagara Comic Con and Hamilton Comic Con, they've all been entered into the Scroll of Honor. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about the Kingdom Awards. They're done at 3 different levels. The first level is called the Award of Arms level. You can receive an Award of Arms that is that first level that you've shown an attempt at creating a medieval persona, at wearing medieval clothing, that you've performed some service, you've shown some commitment and engagement. I have a chat, I have to check. Yes, it's often shortened to AOA. AOA, which I always shortened Arts and Sciences to A&S, but I slur it because I say it so fast. So I've confused a few people about that. Yeah. The D doesn't always get pronounced. Anyway, so AOA. Now, I've put these in columns specifically. The first row is the AOA level award, but each column is for a specific kind of recognition, right? So the Maiden's Heart, that first column is specifically service oriented. The second column is Arts and Sciences, and the third column with the additional piece is for combat. So that first award with that heart is the Maiden's Heart. So that's the AOA level service award. Can someone tell me what the next one is? The harp?
I'm assuming heraldry.
The award of the Orion.
Orion. Huh.
It is the award of the Orion, and it's for Arts and Sciences. It actually started off life as an other award, but now that's what it is. And the next one for combat arms, who do you think that one is? It's really hard to do, very small on a scroll. I'll tell you that right now. Those 2 wolves that are rampant facing each other, they're really hard to do, very, very, very tiny.
Is it a Scarlet Banner?
It is. It is the award of the Scarlet Banner. Excellent. So these awards are what are called armigerous. When a person receives these awards, it is an AOA level award recognition. That person then becomes entitled to bear their arms. Before the person has that, their arms are what are called a device. Once you receive this recognition, they become your arms. And you are then entitled to being called my lord or my lady or noble, if you prefer a non-gendered reference or title. Noble, gentle, there's different ways to do it. Sometimes people even prefer to go to their the culture in which they're trying to portray, to find a suitable title for themselves once they've received recognition. It's pretty cool. The next level is called grant. Grant level awards are for almost like journeyman level recognition, right? So you've gone a little further, you've started to really specialize, people have started to notice you. Maybe like that you are weirdly obsessed with autocrating all the events or serving all the feasts. Tristan?
I don't think that's enough of a specialty.
You'd be surprised. Like, yeah. So the king and the queen get recommendations for these awards, and they choose who gets the AOA level awards. And sometimes it's not even based on a recommendation. It's based on what they've observed, what they've seen people do. At the grant level, those members who are in those orders, they meet sometime now digitally and communicate with each other. And we talk about people who we can recommend as an order recommendation. But even if you're not in those orders, even if you don't have any of those awards, you can still recommend anybody for them, right? So that first level in the service column is the Order of the
Wayne.
Yes. So we have more experienced Scadians in this group. That's why I'm doing this pop quiz thing. So that is the order of the Wain. The next one for arts and science is the order of the Crucible. And the last one there is the order of Thorbjorn's Hammer. And usually when someone is inducted into these orders, the order is either called up first and then the candidate is brought forward and everybody's like, oh my God. You know, some people get teary about it. Sometimes the person's brought forward and almost as if they got in trouble for something. And then the order is called in and everyone's like, oh, psych out. Now, this last row here, this is the peerage row. This is recognition that goes beyond kingdom and it has to actually go as a recommendation to the peerage board at society level with recommendations from those kingdom orders. So the first one here is the Order of the Pelican, and that's for service. The second one here is the Order of the Laurel, that's arts and science. Next we have chivalry. I'm missing Master of Arms. There's another one here, Master of Arms. If you're called to the Order of Chivalry and you choose, now because I'm new in combat arms, this is kind of new to me, and it'd be great if we had a class on this. So there are some nuances here. So you can become a Master of Arms rather than a Knight. And if you're a Master of Arms, you wear a white baldric rather than a white belt. Now, Knights will also wear, I've now had 2 sips of wine, which means I can't remember what they're called. They're the things that go on the back of spurs. Spurs. Yes, spurs was the answer. Yes. Involuntary pop quiz. And they'll also wear chains around their necks, right?
Yes.
Now, the last one here is the Master of Defense, and that is for rapier. Now, there is discussion about another peerage level for pretty much everything else. Siege warfare, thrown weapons, archery.
That would be cool.
It would be very cool, and there's a lot of chatter about that at all different levels. So that's something to really consider. So even for peerage, if you know somebody who is a dynamo and for years has been doing everything, and I don't mean doing everything, I mean guiding new people, training new people, delegating, encouraging, nourishing their community. That's the kind of thing that really goes to peerage level.
That's usually the step between is the peerage. You are helping other people. You are leading.
Yes. Yeah. So anyone can make a recommendation to the king and queen for those kinds of recognition, right? It's really cool. I love it. All right. So nobility, who wears the crown? Well, right now it's Kayla and Trimrand, queen by right of arms. It's pretty fantastic. So to become queen and king, you must compete in and win a crown tournament, which the tournament format is usually set by the reigning king and queen. Whoever has won the tournament is the person who sets it. So this year, Kayla is setting the tournament. And the final, it'll be best of 3 up to the final round, and then best of 5, and the 2 finalists will be choosing weapons in the 5 rounds. And the one who wins 3 of the 5 will be the next king or queen. It's pretty cool, and sometimes it's a bit of a nail biter. It's pretty cool.
Not to scare anybody off, because that's competing in combat is not always everybody's strong suit. There is the option of having a champion fight for you.
Really?
You do not have to fight yourself.
No.
I didn't actually know that.
Is that a relatively new rule?
It's actually not, it's not a thing, no.
Oh, really?
One of the 2 running for king and queen have to fight.
Oh, I was told differently then.
No.
Sorry, my bad.
Their inspiration doesn't have to fight. Even though Kayla and Trimbrand do tend to both fight in Crown, you don't have to both fight. Only one of the 2 people in that couple need to fight. And they don't have to be male and female. They can be male and male, female and female, ungendered, non-gendered. Like range of opportunity here, right?
Nor
Now-
do they have to be partners.
They don't actually have to be married to each other. They don't have to be partners. So Lita, when she became queen, you were not romantically involved in with Steinar?
No, Steiner was married and I
Children?
was in a relationship elsewhere, and we just decided, hey, let's do this, and away we went.
Now, then that actually brings up a good question. Because you are a solo reigning baroness,
Yeah,
with no baron, can that be done on a king and queen level as well?
not as far as I'm aware. And kingdom law actually has 2 people for that. But baronial policies now dictate that you can be a solo. In Rising Waters, you could have been a solo for over 20 years.
All right.
Interesting. I had heard, at least, whether or not this is accurate, that part of the reasoning for that is that being reigning majesties is such a drain on a
Yeah.
person's resources that
Yeah.
there just being one person would be, it would be too much for almost anyone.
Yeah, and on a baronial level, the idea that I always had was that you have enough support from your barony to support you over the 3 to 5 year term that you have. Whereas king and a queen, Lita, I don't know, you definitely could speak to this, but it's a short blast of chock full of stress and intense activity for those 2 individuals.
It's an intense session being princess and then stepping up to be queen, not only emotionally, mentally, but financially as well. And Tristan, yes, you're correct. That is one of the reasons why for that level of office, there does need to be 2 people. There are extenuating circumstances, which we don't need to get into here. If anybody's curious, PM me, and I'm more than happy to chat.
Now, in order to be eligible for crown tournament, the crown may require additional requirements. So the additional requirements might be you have to have your name and arms registered with the College of Arms. You have to have already received your AOA level recognition, which again, that word is armigerous. You must be armigerous. And it can vary depending on the reign and what that crown wants to see happen within that crown tournament. So they wear these hats. They're very shiny, pointy hats.
Such pretty.
Then we have the heirs crowns right here. This is the winner of the crown tournament and their inspiration. They become the heirs, the prince and the princess, until their coronation. Right now, there's a very interesting discussion happening because in Rising Waters, we are the logicians for spring coronation. And right now, we're not allowed to gather in big groups to see our prince and princess become king and queen. So there's a lot of discussion going on about what that looks like. Yeah. So they are prince and princess from the tournament, the crown tournament, until their coronation. So when Privy Council meets, they go to Privy Council. So the collection of all the kingdom officers meet as part of Privy Council. They would attend as well with the king and the queen. When we had the Baronial Council at Tournois, they attended there as well. So they have that opportunity between crown and coronation to learn the ropes, to start taking on those responsibilities. And in the current situation, I have to say, Isabel and Britannicus have really been very active, although we haven't yet got to their coronation. Hopefully we'll have more definitive information to share about our next couple of events. All right, then we have counts and countesses. And this is what their coronets tend to look like. Once their reign ends, a queen and a king, they're then usually recognized by the new monarchs as a count or countess. And sometimes, again, the title can be slightly different depending on the culture. So you could be a jarl rather than a count. Or what is the feminine version?
Some will say Yarla.
Okay.
That's more a Scadianism.
Okay.
I went with a far more traditional 8th century name of Grafinia.
Ah, that's right.
Ooh.
That's nice. It has
A lot of-
gravitas.
So, some people call it Grief Ninja.
Kind of love that too.
No, it's kind of accurate.
If the shoe fits.
Okay, so we also, when a king and a queen step down, the queen becomes a member of the Order of the Rose, and a king becomes a member of the Order of the Trillium. And the county cornet, as you can see, wearing there, is crenellated. So when you see a crenellated cornet, you would refer to that person as, it's usually Your Excellency, isn't it? Is it not? Your Grace is
Correct.
Duke and Duchess. So that's a
Correct.
Your Excellency. Oh, I should add that to this.
You
Okay.
should. What do you call
I'm
people?
going to add it to this slide. They would be referred to as Your Excellency. Now, depending on how, on the individual, some of them are just good with, hey, Lita.
They
works.
also like to go in under
Right here.
undercover. Sometimes they like
Stealth.
to go undercover
This-
and not wear their coronet, and then you don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right, dukes and duchesses. So this is when an individual has had 2 or more reigns as king and queen. So remember we talking about glutton for punishment? When they step down from their 2nd reign, they then become recognized as a duke or duchess. And the ducal cornet, as you can see Adrielle wearing here, features strawberry leaves. So you're looking for a cornet that probably has pointy bits, but they're meant to be strawberry leaves. So you'll see a leaf feature. Now her persona is 14th century. I think she's English. Is she English or French?
English.
I think she's English, yeah.
I think
So
so.
this is a very typical design for 14th century English. I believe that's what that is. And you would refer to them as Your Grace. Now, there's a little bit of, this is what I always learned was that no matter how high up the hierarchy an individual is, it's always courteous to refer to that person to any ranking within that range. Because at one point, Adrielle was a countess and would have been an excellency.
I was told, yes. It's very unlikely that you will offend someone by calling them Your Excellency if you have to guess.
Yeah. And I think if your tone and demeanor is respectful, unless they've had a really crappy day, most people will be all right. All right, so territorial barons and baronesses, the other people with the hats. So these cornets tend to be gold or feature gold coloring. Because you see here, Their Excellency's been DUNFIRTH. Their cornets are black to represent the heraldry, but the metal is gold.
Mm.
Now, the other feature are spheroids. We've got these little spheroids. Now, years ago, the spheroids were always pearl, but now they're metal and black, and mine are blue now. They're lapis now, which I love. And they're different now. So if you see someone with, a gold cornet with spheroids on them, they're likely a baron or
6.
baroness.
You're right.
Landed.
6, yes. Now, yes, that's the other term. So I've used the term territorial, but landed is the other term that is often used, a landed baron or baroness. And these individuals would be referred to as Your Excellency. Now, their success policies, it meant to say succession policies. Succession policies. I'm finding all the typos in this printer. It's great. Succession policies are posted to the baronial websites for each barony. So that is the process by which their landed baron and baroness is selected. And it's also in the Kingdom Library on the Kingdom website. Court barons and baronesses. So They also have spheroids,
Yes.
but the metal featured will be silver. That's the difference here. And this one
Cool.
features cats.
One of the people. That is awesome.
So this is granted in recognition for significant service to the crown. Territorial or landed baron and baronesses, when they step down, they generally become court barons and baronesses. Key difference here, again, is silver, but they still have the spheroids, which is great. I can still wear my lapis spheroids.
And cats.
It's awesome. Well, I don't think I'll be wearing cats. I would never do that.
That's Nicholas.
That's Nicholas,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Quatrefoils. But I think I'm a ways away from that now. I'm with the chalices right now. That is my theme right now. All right. So
My parents are court.
frequently used terms. All right. So Anno Societatis is a term that you will hear in court a lot when scrolls are being read out, or AS. So
Or
this
if
is
you read any of the historical documents.
any of the historical documents of this society. So this is the year, this is how we reckon time from that first event on May 1st, 1966. So every May Day begins a new year in the SCA. Now, if you click this link, we're going to do that, and hopefully you'll follow me with the screen share. Let's see if that works.
We
you see
can't
what I'm looking
look
at?
it. No.
Damn it, didn't
If
work.
it opens a new window, then it'll show whatever's only.
Well, it's a link to, okay, hold on, I'll share it. There's a button that says share. Okay, hang on. Move that there. And new share. Not that one. Yes,
Are
that
you
one.
showing the reckoning dates?
This one.
Yeah.
Hey.
If you come across, years from now, when you've received a scroll for your award of arms, but it's an AS date, and you have no idea what real year Anno Societatis 34 was, here's a quick and easy way to find out. I use this all the time.
It's very handy.
It is very handy. Okay, so we're going to go back here. All right, and everyone can see the slide again?
Yep.
Yay! Okay. Now, Scadian or Scanadian is a participant in the SCA. Obviously, a Scanadian is one of us, or those Scadians who
we're different.
reside in Canada. Yeah. So I've been to Penzic, and there's a big Walmart nearish to Penzic that a lot of folks go to for their logistical requirements.
Mhm.
And a lot of people go in garb. I do. I don't want to take the time to change, so I go in garb. Are you a Scadian? No, I'm a Scanadian. It's very confusing for mundane folks. Oh, that's another word I could put on here. Mundane.
Or muggle.
I don't tend to use muggle.
Oh, I do. I love that word.
So arms or device that's a shield design a person might register with the College of Arms with the help of a herald. Your persona is your backstory in the SCA based on a plausible historical context. I say plausible historical context because there's been one that's been that has recently been discussed, and that's someone who is in Mexico but has a a Japanese mother, and it's like a mishmash of all different things. But they were able to actually document these 4 different cultures being in Mexico in the time frame of the SCA.
That's amazing.
It was
A lot of
amazing.
research.
And a herald can
Truth
help
is
you with your
stranger
name.
than fiction.
It's stranger than fiction. It's reality.
Colonization.
Yeah. So then there's arts and science, A&S. It's pretty much anything that isn't service or combat related, although they can be topics of research. They can cross over into the arts and science realm. So if you're interested, if you're interested in service and combat, but not too keen on arts and science, don't let that stop you from going to an arts and science activity or event, because you wouldn't be surprised to find service and combat topics discussed at that arts and science event.
Yeah, you might learn how to make a shield, or
Never
the
know.
older way of making swords and weapons and things. Tons of things.
So then we have order of precedence. So there's order of precedence and march. Oh, what's the phrase? March. Order of march. That's it. So the order of precedence.
March.
Order of march. So there's the order of precedence, which is a record of recognition and awards. Now, each barony has an OP. Sometimes it's shortened to OP. And, oh, I just stopped the share. I'm so sorry, everybody. That was my error. Okay, so we're going to share that. We're going to share that. We're going to share that. We're going to share everything. No, we're going to share this right now.
Are you oversharing?
Never. So this is the order of precedence here for the kingdom. And you can go by group if you're looking for a particular group. You can look up by awards. So say if you want to know everybody who has an award of the Orion. There they are. Everybody who has an award of the Orion. It's a very long list. Very long list. If you want to find everybody, what do we want to find? Well, that's for a local area. If you want to find a specific person, I'll use myself as a
Your
guinea pig.
Excellency,
Yes.
if you look under the Herald's badge, that's the Trillium Signet badge.
Yeah. I was trying to find the society ones. I'll put that one in the slide deck, though. That's a good reference. So if you look for me, you would find, awesomely enough, you find I'm in the Barony of Rising Waters. There's my personal device. There's my personal badge and the recognition that I've been very fortunate to receive. Okay, so we're going to share, go back to our slide deck. We're almost done.
As I said, she's good at about like 50
Okay.
million.
All right. Now you may have heard the term event steward or autocrat, and those two terms are used interchangeably to indicate the person who is responsible for an event. Right? So they take the charge on any event. So the autocrat for Pensic War is the mayor of Pensic. Right? So they coordinate with their staff. If they're very good, they will delegate, have staff to delegate to and not wear everything on their own shoulders. But they bear the ultimate responsibility for reporting and ensuring that all the checkpoints are made. Now the feast steward and feastocrat, they mean the same person. And that's the person who has the lead role in the feast. And sometimes there'll be a lunchocrat or the lunch steward who will focus on lunch. Now, for events where I was event steward, I always thought of the feast steward as my partner. And if it was a kingdom event, I always thought of kingdom staff that I would talk with as being another partner. So we would work together to, coordinate this event and make it awesome. Feast gear, these are the items you need to sit feast. They include things like a plate, a bowl, utensils, sometimes they go to napkins and tablecloths and other accoutrements that you might want to include.
Drinking vessel.
Drinking vessels, a battery operated candle that you can have in front of you, a personal banner that you can sit on the table, like really little, not really big, really little, yeah. And right here is a link to online glossary of commonly used terms that I didn't include today, but they're there. So conventions, traditions, and customs. So these vary by kingdom, generally speaking, and often are inherited from the parent kingdom. So we came out of the Middle Kingdom. So we have some customs that actually originated in the Middle Kingdom. Now, when we're at an event and someone receives recognition, what do we say at court? For Lord Jotunbjorn.
Wassail!
Yay! We say
There you go.
wassail. Middle Kingdom doesn't say wassail. Does anyone know what they say? They say hooba. And it's based on it's a stupid joke. And when Eldermere became a kingdom, about 3 years in, it was changed to wassail. And I think it was actually Finvar who might have changed it, Duke Finvar. Yeah,
Okay.
Arrow's nodding. Because wassail, meaning good health, is a much more appropriate medieval term to call to someone who's just received recognition. All right. So some terms are reserved by custom. So terms like apprentice, protege, squire, a man-at-arms. So these are specific relationships that someone can build with usually a peer. These are with peers. And you become that person, you become related to that person, associated with them. So having a persona based around as an apprentice of something becomes a bit challenging because we do have this custom of an apprentice being specifically related in a sort of teacher-student role with a laurel. A squire related specifically with a knight. So it becomes very challenging. Now, sumptuary laws are definitely medieval, right? in the medieval times. So one specific sumptuary law was what kinds of furs an individual could wear. Because when the merchant class was developing, enough wealth that they could buy whatever the noble were wearing, the nobles wanted to make it so that they could be recognized as nobles and not just rich merchants. Damn it. So they developed sumptuary laws. So some of those sumptuary laws that we don't really have sumptuary laws per se here, but we do have things like belt colors. So knights wear white belts. Master at arms wear white baldricks. Red belts are worn by squires. Yellow belts are worn by proteges, and green belts are worn by apprentices. The coronets that we have, those could be considered sumptuary customs, right? An individual who's not a duchess or a duke should not wear a coronet with strawberry leaves. It's not a good idea. Unless you're a baron and baroness, don't wear a coronet with spheroids on it. That's not a good idea. Don't wear a coronet. Just don't go there. If you're confused or concerned that you might be stepping in the wrong direction, you're not sure, talk to somebody who's a little more experienced in the SCA just to, hey, this is what I'm having done. Is this good? Can I do this?
Does this count as a circlet or a coronet? I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, my understanding is that an unadorned circlet is fine to wear at a AOA level and lower. Once it becomes engraved and has gems in the circlet, that's grant level recognition. Any adornment on the circlet. Now, I come from Ontier originally, and that's what I learned in Ontier, but I haven't really encountered that to a great extent here in EALDORMERE.
Now, adornment on a circlet, does that also include like just embossing and whatnot?
And engravings and things like that? I haven't really encountered anyone going after people for wearing that.
I've actually never heard that custom in EALDORMERE. That may be an Ontierism.
I think it might be an Ontier custom because, like I said, I haven't seen or heard anyone in EALDORMERE saying, hey, you can't wear that. No, I've never witnessed that.
Generally, circlets in EALDORMERE can be simply adorned. No gems, obviously, because the spheroids are reserved for baronial, but a simple pattern like knotwork is just fine.
Simplicity.
That sounds about right.
Right. So here we have about 2.5 minutes. So there are some resources that I'm providing to you in this slide, including a picture of the Known World Handbook, which if you haven't got a copy of, I highly recommend. It's got chapters on how to make your first armor, how to make garb, persona development, music, calligraphy, and illumination. It has such a wide range of amazing things in it that the Barony of Rising Waters actually purchased 2 to have in our library for our local members to borrow. So it's one of those things that it's a really good resource to have. Now, the SCA resources page, I've given you the link here, and it's actually hyperlinked, so you'll have the link to it. The Kingdom of EALDORMERE has lots of resources on their page. Look at the library specifically, and then you can also look at the history page as well, directly through the Kingdom of EALDORMERE website. Now, the EALDORMERE Wiki is a non-official website, but has tons of information on people and households and local branches. It's really good to include. Now, I wanted to include local members, people who are in your local group that have organizational history, skill, and memory to share. And in some cases, they're going to share whether you ask them or not, because that's what they like to do. They've been in the SCA for decades, and they want to share their joy that they've experienced in the SCA. So here's also a link to the SCA new member site, and the Barony of Rising Waters is developing a new member website as well. So I've given you a link to that too. And so finally, what is the SCA? Well, I've told you it's a non-profit or educational organization, but it's family and community and fun. And look, a Star Trekkie, and this is a sea elf, and charity organizations supported by the SCA, the Niagara Humane Society. Look, fun in the kitchen. It's history, it's culture, and it's a ton of fun.
Family.
Family.
That too.
So I want to say thank you for coming. We're running out of time again.
Do we want to restart it up really quickly just to go through questions?
Yeah, do you guys want, okay, so we're gonna forgo